Coming up on Arirang News, COVID-19 is surging in South Korea, but health authorities say there is no need to raise the alert level as it is going to gradually subside after passing its peak by the end of August. South Korea is out of Typhoon Tongari's influence as it dissipated on Wednesday morning. No casualties have been reported, though it left some damage across the country. The second day of the Democratic National Convention wrapped up on Tuesday, where a ceremonial roll call nominated Kamala Harris. Another highlight included Barack and Michelle Obama's headline speeches, strongly endorsing her. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. We begin with the COVID-19 resurgence in the country this summer. The government expects this to be part of the endemic process and says it can be managed within the current response system. Cha Soo-young takes a closer look.
The current COVID-19 surge in South Korea is expected to continue until the end of August. In a Wednesday briefing, the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency predicted that this summer's resurgence will peak later this month before decreasing.
This summer's COVID-19 surge is expected to peak at the end of August and be similar in scale to last year's.
The agency added that the reasons for this COVID-19 surge include the fact that last winter's outbreak was not very severe and the COVID-19 vaccination rate has been relatively low. However, the KDCA also stated that the current management system is sufficient to handle the situation.
The current situation should be seen as part of the process of COVID-19 becoming endemic, not as a crisis like the pandemic from 2020 to 2022.
According to the agency, the number of COVID-19 inpatients from 220 hospitals nationwide dramatically increased from 226 in the third week of July to 1,366 in the second week of this month. However, the agency emphasized that the cumulative fatality rate from January 2020 to August 2023 was 0.1% and is similar to that of seasonal flu. It has ensured a stable supply of treatments and test kits to protect high-risk groups such as the elderly and in case of a potential uptick in cases. The KDCA has announced that treatments for about 180,000 people will be distributed by the 26th. These supplies are planned to last for high-risk groups until October, after which they'll be provided more steadily through the general healthcare system. Around 3.25 million test kits are expected to be supplied. The Ministry of Health and Welfare recently said that effective vaccines against the current variants will be supplied starting in October, urging people to follow personal hygiene measures. Cha Soo-young, Arirang News.
Typhoon Jongdari, which approached the Korean peninsula on Tuesday, dissipated this morning. Though it was a relatively weak typhoon, it did leave some damage in its wake. Yoon reports.
Typhoon Jongdari, although described as a relatively weak typhoon, did cause some damage across South Korea. No human casualties have been reported, but severe flooding had trapped people in their cars and homes. The typhoon approached the Korean peninsula on Tuesday before it weakened into a tropical depression at around 9 p.m. the same day, which was earlier than expected by the weather agency. And by 9 a.m. Wednesday morning, the tropical depression had also dissipated, with the transition resulting in significant rainfall.
The typhoon and tropical depression have dissipated and the system has fully transformed into a temperate low-pressure system.
The aftermath of Typhoon Jongdari has been heavy rainfall, mostly to the central regions of the country. On Wednesday morning, strong rain and winds caused a tree to fall near Shilim Station in Seoul, covering a power supply unit and resulting in a power outage that affected approximately 300 nearby homes for about an hour. Overnight, Boryong City in Chungcheongnam-do Province experienced heavy rainfall of 27 millimeters per hour. This intense rain coincided with what is called the Baekjungsari, period when sea levels are at their highest for the year, and caused flooding to nearby roads and shops. Due to the severe flooding, over 20 areas including bridges, roads, and coastal areas have been placed under control. The city of Incheon has also experienced heavy rain and strong winds, leading to over 30 reported instances of damage, including flooded roads and vehicles, as well as fallen trees. This included more than 4 houses flooded in Gangwon County, which led firefighters to carry out drainage work. Rain is expected to continue nationwide until Thursday, and high temperatures and humidity will also persist in the coming days. The Korea Meteorological Administration forecasts that tropical nights are likely to continue, with heat waves potentially persisting due to warm, moist air coming from the southwest. Yoon, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports have increased nearly 20% by mid-August on the back of robust outbound shipments of chips. According to the Korea Customs Service on Wednesday, exports in the first 20 days of August amounted to $33.1 billion, up by more than 18% year-on-year. Monthly export figures have been rising for 10 consecutive months since last October and are expected to show positive growth this month as well. By items, semiconductor exports rose by over 42%, while outbound shipments of petroleum products rose by over 11%. By country, exports to the EU and the US rose by around 18% and to China by more than 16%. South Korean automakers Hyundai Motor Company and Kia Corporation have had their long-term issuer and issue credit ratings upgraded from BBB+ to A- by S&P Global, a leading financial services firm. This indicates they are expected to uphold strong profits and cash flow despite a slowdown in the global automotive market. S&P Global stated on Wednesday that the upgrade reflects Hyundai and Kia's growing presence in key markets, especially in the U.S., driven by the strong performances of their sports utility vehicles. The outlook also noted their strong lineup of electric and hybrid vehicles to adapt to the move toward electrification. South Korea's fuel tax cuts will be extended through October as fears grow over a wider regional conflict in the Middle East. Our Moon Hye-ryun tells us more.
The South Korean government is extending fuel tax cuts until the end of October, as global oil prices surge with mounting tensions in the Middle East. That's according to Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok during an economic meeting on Wednesday.
Volatile global oil prices due to the recent escalating tensions in the Middle East to place a burden on people's livelihoods. As a result, the government will be extending the fuel tax cut for 2 months until the end of October.
Currently, the tax on gasoline is levied at 656 Korean won per litre, with a tax rate cut of 20% applied. For diesel, it's 407 won per litre, down by 30%. Back in July 2022, the government expanded the fuel tax cut rate to 37% for gasoline and diesel in an attempt to stabilize consumer prices before reducing the rate in steps. This is the 11th time that the government has extended the fuel tax cuts, as they were due to expire at the end of this month. Global oil prices have been prone to fluctuations in recent days, with uncertainties in how the conflict between Israel and Iran will play out. On Wednesday, oil prices slipped as mediators from Egypt and Qatar, as well as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, pushed for a ceasefire agreement. However, the market is volatile, with oil prices rising for 5 straight sessions due to positive U.S. economic data a week before. Stabilizing domestic consumer prices is a key reason behind the extension of the fuel tax reduction measures. Last month, oil prices at home rose 8.4% year-on-year as the government lowered the fuel tax cut rate. This is the highest increase seen since October 2022. Initially, the government expected revenue from traffic, energy and environment taxes to reach 15.3 trillion won this year, or around $11.5 billion, which is up by more than 40% than last year. Due to the extension of the oil tax reduction measures, tax revenue could be lower than expected. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, greater support is coming for the victims of real estate fraud. The National Assembly Committee on Land and Infrastructure approved a revision today that guarantees the victims of rental scams up to 20 years of residence in the property they've rented. The bill further lessens the requirement to be acknowledged as a victim, upping the deposit amount limit for tenants to 700 million Korean won, or roughly $530,000. If approved by the full assembly next week, the change will serve to improve an existing law enacted last year after tens of thousands of fraud cases were reported across the country through the abuse of Korea's unique rental system called jeonse. A task force aimed at deepening South Korea-Czech cooperation held a meeting on Wednesday and reviewed the current progress on the Czech nuclear power plant project. According to the top office, the meeting was presided over by Jang Ho-jin, the president's special advisor for foreign affairs and security, and Song Tae-yoon, the president's chief of staff for policy, with members of various relevant ministries. The meeting also looked over the possible outcomes of President Yoon Suk-yeol's upcoming visit to the Czech Republic next month. The team looked beyond the nuclear project and saw ways to enhance cooperation in finance, industry, energy, and science, among others. Agricultural authorities are hoping the presence of smart technology at livestock farms will encourage a younger tech-savvy demographic to embrace the trade. Our Lee Soo-jin explains.
You can tell just from the outside that this isn't your typical pig farm. This farm in Pyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do province has adopted smart livestock technology that increases the PSY, or the number of piglets born per sow per year. It also reduces the infamous foul odor of pig farms, making pig farming more appealing to young people, which, according to the Agriculture Ministry, is an urgent need.
The share of livestock farmers aged 70 and above has reached a record 34.3%. Without younger farmers, the livestock industry could stagnate.
And this farm is an example of how smart livestock technology can be used to attract younger farmers. Each morning, the manager checks the temperature and humidity of the farm and adjusts them in this control room, helping pigs, which are especially vulnerable to respiratory diseases, stay healthy. They're also kept well fed thanks to third-generation livestock technology that makes sure the pigs get the right amount of food. AI-enhanced cameras are used to detect when the feeders are empty, making it possible for them to be refilled automatically. Thanks to these ideal conditions, the PSY here is around 30, compared to the nationwide average of around 24 last year. But the most helpful change smart livestock technology can bring is arguably its role in reducing foul odors.
Before this technology, livestock farms were often plagued by numerous complaints. Getting rid of the smell not only benefits the people in the area, but it also allows for a more pleasant working environment.
Air released from the farm is gathered into an air shower room where a whopping 100 tons of water is used every hour to purify the air before it's released. More widespread use of smart technology at livestock farms like this is expected to encourage more young people to join the agriculture sector, giving it a much-needed boost. As part of its efforts to boost usage, the Agriculture Ministry is providing mentoring programs to teach young people how to use this technology. Continued efforts like this by the public sector will likely result in a new generation of farmers meeting the growing demand for meat through the use of smart livestock technology. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol on Wednesday encouraged South Korean and U.S. troops as they engaged in their annual summer exercise, Ulchi Freedom Shield, aimed at deterring North Korean military threats. According to Yoon's office, the president visited the Army's Ground Operations Command in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do province, where he was briefed on their operational status, including the Ulchi Freedom Shield drills. Yoon also viewed combat operations and encouraged South Korean and U.S. military personnel. The 11-day exercise includes live field maneuvers, computer simulation-based command post exercises, and related civil defense drills. Yoon's National Security Council said on Wednesday it had conducted the first ever nationwide training involving both the public and private sectors, which specifically focused on cyber resilience to address hybrid warfare, which combines cyber threats with military actions. Over in the U.S., President Joe Biden has reportedly approved a nuclear strategy that seeks to prepare the country for possible coordinated threats from China, Russia, and North Korea. Citing a highly classified document approved in March, the New York Times reported Tuesday that Biden approved a revised strategy titled the Nuclear Employment Guidance, which is updated every 4 years or so. The newspaper added that this takes into account the rapid buildup of China's nuclear arsenal, which the Pentagon believes its stockpiles will rival the size and diversity of the U.S. over the next decade. But when asked about this report, the White House said the plan was not a response to a single country or threat. On day 2 of the DNC over in Chicago, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has been nominated as the Democratic presidential candidate in an energetic roll call. Former President Barack Obama was also there with strong words of support for Harris's race to the White House. Choi Min-jung has the takeaways.
The U.S. Democratic National Convention held a ceremonial roll call in Chicago on Tuesday, endorsing Kamala Harris to be the next president of America. Though the Democrats had already nominated Harris 3 weeks ago with 99% of the delegate votes at a virtual roll call, Tuesdays gave the delegates the opportunity to verbally voice their support. With rapper Lil Jon taking the stage, the roll call quickly turned into a dance party. The vice president addressed the DNC in a video call from a rally in Wisconsin, saying she's honored to be their nominee.
This is a people-powered campaign, and together we will chart a new way forward. A future for freedom, opportunity, of optimism and faith.
The second night of the DNC closed with former President Barack Obama calling on Americans to elect Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Speaking in Chicago on Tuesday night, Obama said the torch has been passed as he made a strong case for Harris.
America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Obama said Harris would work on behalf of every American, especially the working class, as he described Harris as a person who spent her life fighting on behalf of those who need a voice. He also encouraged Americans to vote, saying the U.S. does not need more years of the Republican candidate, Donald Trump.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
Harris will deliver her acceptance speech as the presidential nominee on Thursday. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Iran's pledged retaliation against Israel may take a longer time than expected, while Hamas has dismissed the Gaza ceasefire proposal, criticizing President Biden. Cha Yoon-kyung has more.
According to a spokesperson for the country's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on Tuesday, Iran's pledged retaliation against Israel for the killing of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran will take some time to be realized. In an interview with state media, the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting, the spokesperson said that Iranian actions will be very calculated ones. He said that a revenge attack was inevitable. Meanwhile, the firm stand of Iran after the assassination of Haniyeh has been toned down.
We do not seek to escalate tensions in the region and support sincere efforts made by all parties to achieve a ceasefire. In addition, we would like to reiterate that Iran has the legitimate right to punish aggressors and deter Israel.
In the meantime, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who has been making diplomatic efforts to secure a ceasefire in Israel's war with Hamas, visited Qatar right after meeting with the Israeli president in Tel Aviv on Tuesday. Blinken is pushing the Hamas leadership through intermediaries to continue talks on a ceasefire deal, adding that Israel has accepted the U.S. ceasefire plan.
Israel has now accepted that proposal. I heard that directly from Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. And we hope and expect that Hamas will do the same.
U.S. President Joe Biden is also pressing Hamas, saying at the Democratic National Convention that Hamas was falling back when it comes to the ceasefire deal.
However, a Hamas official on Saturday local time dismissed Biden's ceasefire proposal for Gaza, adding that remarks by Biden and Blinken were falsely endorsing it and allowing the Israeli government to commit crimes. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Russia claims it has captured an eastern Ukrainian town that is strategically significant in terms of logistics, as part of its response to a surprise incursion by Kyiv in recent times. Yoon has more.
Russia said on Tuesday that it had captured the eastern Ukrainian town of New York, a small yet strategically important logistics hub, and a significant part of Moscow's push to capture the entire Donetsk region. Donetsk is one of 4 Ukrainian regions that Russia claims to have annexed, while it remains a territorial claim that Kyiv and the West have rejected as illegal. 2 weeks after Ukraine's surprise attack on Kursk, aimed at weakening Russian forces, the Kremlin announced on Tuesday that new military groupings were being formed in eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described the situation in the east as difficult, but the country's top commander says forces have pushed to capture 1,263 square kilometers of territory, including 93 settlements. Washington says its policy of not allowing Ukraine to use long-range missiles inside Russia remains unchanged, despite Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky repeatedly seeking permission to use American long-range weapons and British Storm Shadow missiles. While Zelensky continues to reiterate that being able to use long-range weapons would halt the current invasion in Russia, the Biden administration remains concerned about the potential for escalation, adding that the drones currently used by Ukraine have been effective in hitting Russian targets. Washington is also effectively blocking Britain's request to allow Kyiv to use British Storm Shadow missiles, which have a range of up to 250 kilometers, against targets deep inside Russian territory. Yoon, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea's main delegation for the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games departed for Paris on Wednesday. 48 athletes and staff members boarded their flight to the French capital from Incheon International Airport. The first group traveled to Paris last Wednesday to participate in a pre-Games training camp. In total, the country is sending 83 athletes and 94 staff members to compete in 17 sports, with the goal of winning at least 5 gold medals and ranking among the top 20 in the overall medal standings. The Paris 2024 Paralympics will take place from August 28th to September 8th. Typhoon Jongdari left rain clouds behind. Therefore, it will continue to rain all over the country until tomorrow. In the central parts of the country, there are many places where the heat wave warning has been eased on to an advisory due to some heavy rain. However, the humidity is still high, so there is a special heat wave warning in most parts of the country. Most of the strong rain clouds have escaped to the north. However, as the low pressure approaches again tomorrow, it will rain across the country. Starting with the central part at dawn, it will expand across the country in the morning, with up to 60 millimeters expected in the central parts and up to 40 expected in the southern parts of the country. Tomorrow morning will start off at least 26 degrees Celsius all over the country. Highs will move up to 30 in Seoul and Chuncheon, Gyeongju 36 degrees. After the rain stops, tropical nights and heat waves are expected to continue. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.